just like to welcome everybody to the Young Learner webinar from MEI, the Language School Association in Ireland. And we're delighted to have a range of partners joining us on the call today from all over the world. This is the second in a series of webinars that we've hosted around young learners. In February of this year, we presented on the different regions of Ireland. So we're delighted to do a follow-up, maybe discuss a little bit about how the summer 2023 went and a forecast looking into 2024. So just as by brief kind of background, sorry, just trying to get my slides to move forward here. Here we go, sorry. So yeah, just a little bit of background on MEI. I should introduce myself. My name is Lorcan O'Connor-Lloyd. I'm the CEO of MEI. We're the leading association of quality accredited English language schools in Ireland. We, I suppose, have many functions in terms of the promotion of the sector, both domestically and internationally. We're driving ELT standards through best practice with our members. We work with the state in Ireland, I suppose, in terms of lobbying and advocacy for the sector. We promote and support our members through committees and training and collaborative initiatives similar to the webinar we're doing today. And also we travel internationally to promote Ireland, to travel to meet with agents and I suppose discuss the opportunities for students coming to Ireland. We have 69 member schools. I think one of the things that binds us together more strongly than nearly anything really is junior programs. Of the 69 members, 65 have some sort of a junior offering, whether that's summer programs, off-season mini stays or high schools. So we're delighted today to have an expert panel joining us to discuss the different offerings in Ireland. So I suppose I'll just a quick run through of how the webinar is going to work today. So we will have, I suppose, to kick off, I'm going to start with a little bit of audience engagement just to get an idea of who we have on the call, the different programs that you're interested in, and maybe some of the themes that you would like to discuss, that can hopefully, I suppose, lead us in the right direction in terms of being able to give the necessary information that you need for your students. Before I do that, I suppose I'll just introduce the panel, or I'll let them introduce themselves. Each of the speakers is going to talk on a particular program area. And then once we're finished with the presentations, we'll have an open discussion. So if you have questions during the presentation section, please enter them into the chat box, and we'll collate those and we'll put them to our panel at the end of the discussion. So as I said, in a minute or two, we're going to start a little bit of audience engagement. But before I do that, I just want to allow the speakers to introduce themselves. So I'm going to start with Aoife Govern from Apollo.
Hi everyone, I'm Aoife from Apollo Language Centre. It's really great to see so many agents online this morning. I hope you enjoy the webinar and that it's beneficial for you. Just a small bit about Apollo. We are located all year round in Dublin City Centre for mini stays and adults. We're probably most well known for our junior summer programmes. We have 2 centres in Dublin, 1 in Cork and 1 in Limerick. So I'll be talking to you a little bit later on about junior summer programs.
That's great. Thanks, Aoife. And our second speaker will be Evan Delaney.
Hi, everybody. I'm Evan Delaney. I'm the owner of Pace Language Institute. Pace is well over 30 years old. I know I've aged very well, thank you, but it's a second generation school. We specialize in mini stays all year round and junior programs. So we're probably probably quite unique is that we don't take adult students. We focus mainly on juniors. And I'll be chatting to you about mini stays.
That's great. Thanks, Evan. Our third speaker will be Sarah McGovern from ISI.
Hi, everyone. I'm Sarah McGovern. I'm a high school program manager at ISI Dublin. We have 2 schools located in Dublin City Centre. We work with adults, summer camp, mini stays, groups, and high school. And of course, I'll be talking to you today about high school.
Thanks, Sarah. And finally, Gina Witherow.
Hi everyone, my name is Gina Witherow. I'm from Donegal English Language School and we are based in Donegal on the beautiful Wild Atlantic Way. We, for juniors, we specialise in English and horse riding, English and surfing, and English and multi-adventure. And we also offer immersive mini stays. And like Evan, we're well established. We're 34 years going, and yeah, I hope I've aged as well as you, Evan.
Thank you so much, Sheena. Okay, so to kick off, we're going to have a little bit of audience engagement. So I'm just going to stop share here for a second, and we're going to use a tool called Mentimeter, which some of you may or may not be familiar with. So I'm just going to load this up now. Okay, so you should be able to see on your screen now an opening page, MEI Junior Programs in Ireland. You may have got a prompt to download the Mentimeter software. If you want to do that, you can onto your desktop, but if you prefer, you can just go to menti.com and enter the code 61817620 or use the QR code here. So maybe some people prefer to use their phone maybe as the kind of interactive tool and leave their laptop for the presentation. So I'll just give you a minute to get set up there. So it's menti.com and then 61817620. Once you're logged in, the screen kind of goes blank, so don't be worried that you've gone into the wrong place. You should be okay. Okay, so I'm going to start with our first interactive question, and if people are still haven't set themselves up yet, they can see at the top there the code and the web link. So the first question, just briefly to get an idea of who we have on the call, just wondering where you're joining from today. There's you can enter 2 words there. So if you want to name your business or your city or your location, ideally we'd like to know people's at least what country they're coming from. So I'll give you a few minutes to enter that. So we can kind of see some of the responses coming in now. So great to see such a diversity of different nationalities on the call. Lots from Dublin, lots from Turkey, lots from Italy, but also Madrid, Czech Republic, Cork, Florence, Ennis, Lisbon, Argentina. So well done to whoever's up very early in Argentina this morning. And also I think a few people in the chat from Russia, Spain, Italy. So yeah, as I said, it's great. It's great that Ireland is able to offer opportunities to junior students from all over the world, and we continue to, I suppose, hopefully spread the message and try to create as much of a diverse classroom as we possibly can. Okay, so I'm going to go on to the next slide. So the next one is, do you send junior students to Ireland? So I suppose, yes, you're actively sending. Yes, maybe you have in the past, but you haven't more recently. And then no, you're exploring it as a new market. So at least we can get an idea, I suppose, of people's experience in terms of working with Ireland for juniors. So it seems like a nice mix. I mean, it's good that we're reconnecting with some old partners, but also there's quite a few people on the call who are exploring Ireland as a new destination. So hopefully we'll be able to give insight to both cohorts. So we're looking around about 70% actively sending, 15% have sent junior students to Ireland in the past, and just below 20% are exploring as a new market. So what junior programs are you interested in? So we have three categories here: summer camps, mini stays, and high schools. And you can choose multiple options if you want. You can, if you're interested in all three, you can select all three. So reasonably even spread, actually. I know. I mean, I suppose summer camps traditionally are always the biggest, so you'd expect that number to be a little bit higher than the others. But definitely very strong, high interest in high schools, and we've seen a trend towards more and more students coming to Ireland for high school placement, particularly over the last sort of 3 to 5 years. And as we said, we've got Sarah on the call today to discuss high schools. And finally, I suppose this will hopefully maybe give us some insight in terms of different themes that people would like to discuss on the call, particularly when we get to the panel discussion later on. So what are the most influential factors when deciding where to send your students to? So some really interesting comments here. The most prominent seems to be safety, quality, price. Although there's other factors definitely catching up, and a real variety of I suppose a variety of terms here, but maybe some commonality in terms of um, quality is definitely mentioned quite a lot. An international mix, programs, fees, good organization, type of school, budget, facilities. What else have we got here? Well organized activities, homestay, which we'll definitely have a good discussion on accommodation later on. And one person, or at least one person, has put up great flight connections. So again, maybe we can discuss later on the sort of access into Ireland, and then maybe internally, I suppose, how junior students get around, both in their day to day, but also, I suppose, in terms of their airport transfers. And the most responses has been on this particular question, so grateful for all of your input, and that'll definitely help to shape our conversation today. So I'm going to stop the Mentimeter now, and we will hop back onto the presentation. Perfect. Before we kick off the presentation, it's just been flagged with me that I think my colleague Rachel has probably shared the meeting room link. So she shared her own personal meeting room link to quite a few people here. I can see a lot of the attendees are coming up with the name Rachel Murphy on their ID. If you want to try and change your name on there, if you kind of hover up on the top right hand side of your screen, there's three dots. You can click on that and you can press rename. So apologies for the confusion on that. So we're going to kick off with Aoife Govern talking about summer programs. And Aoife, if you want to instruct me on the slides.
Great. Thank you, Lorcan. You can move ahead. So I'm very happy to see that there were so many agents on the call today already sending students to Ireland, as well as new agents who are looking to Ireland as a new destination. I'm really looking forward to the panel discussion and the questions and answers at the end. So just to start, Ireland has always been a popular destination for junior students, for students mainly coming, as you can see from the top nationalities, from Italy and Spain. We have always had a lot of Italian students, a lot of Spanish students, but I'm very happy to say that in the last couple of years, MEI schools have really noticed a change in this, in terms of new nationalities, new groups, new agents looking to send students to Ireland from outside of Europe. This Brexit definitely had an impact on our student population, which is great news for Ireland. So I do think that in the next 2 years, that top nationalities chart will look quite different. And we're always trying to attract new nationalities to Ireland. For us in particular, this past summer, we had groups from Portugal, Slovakia, Vietnam, from the UAE. So these were all quite unusual nationalities for us to mix in with our other students, which was really great. So why should you as agents choose MEI schools for your students? I think that any agent who sends junior students knows that it's very different sending a junior student or a junior group of students than sending adult students. You really need to know and trust the schools that you work with. Things happen during junior programs, and we need you and you need us at different times of the programs. So as well as all the kind of normal aspects that make up a typical junior program, such as, of course, dedicated safeguarding, academic content, integrated social program, and fully trained staff for both the teaching and the activities, I feel that MEI schools, what makes us different than other countries is that preparation and attention to detail are the keys to making a successful junior program. And the relationship between agents and schools has never been more important. Yeah, Lorcan, if you want to move on to the next slide. So MEI schools consist of many different types of schools, from kind of small countryside, small town schools to city destinations. The majority of our programs run over the summer between June and August. Most of the schools have a typical age range of 11 to 17. You will definitely find among the MEI schools a broad variety of both host family and residential programs. I think residential programs are becoming more and more popular, but Ireland has always had a good reputation for host family programs. And I think we'll talk a little bit more about it later, but it's definitely stabilizing and becoming what it used to be before COVID. The most of the programs that you'll find in Ireland are a typical multi-activity program, and a lot of the schools will welcome both groups and individuals to our programs. It's very important in all of the MEI schools that do welcome individual students is that they don't get forgotten, and when groups can be quite overpowering in junior schools. So many of the schools in MEI will have dedicated teams dedicated to looking after individual students who have taken the brave step to come to Ireland on their own. So in addition to the standard multi-activity program, many of the MEI schools will have different types of programs, such as the very popular family program, which will be dedicated to parents and their children coming together. Another program that's getting more and more popular, I think you'll all have experienced this, is the young adult program, which is kind of like a stepping stone from the junior program to the adult programs, in that students will still have a package, they'll still have a certain element of supervision, but they'll also be more independent and have a little bit more freedom. And later on the presentation, Gina from Donegal English Language School is going to be talking more about English Plus programs. So we can move on to the next one. So all schools that you work with will have their own timetable and their own kind of sample of activities and excursions. Usually, depending on the school you work with, you'll have access to this during your sales period when you're promoting it to students and parents. And most definitely before your students arrive to the school, they'll be able to see what activities and what excursions they're going on. One big selling point for sending junior students to Ireland is we're a very small country, so it's very easy to go to different parts of Ireland. Say if you're studying in Cork, you can go to the Cliffs of Moher very easily. Likewise, obviously Dublin, we've a lot within reach of Dublin, but also all over Ireland, it's very easy to reach many of the attractions that are really suitable for junior students. So this is a typical sample timetable, which would usually be for a host family program. Usually residential programs would have evening activities every day, depending on the school, but mostly residential programs would have a fuller timetable, and students who choose to stay in host families will usually spend a little bit more time with their families so that they're speaking more and getting the cultural experience of staying with a family. So we can move on, Lorcan, thank you. So for me, one of the most enjoyable aspects of running junior programs is talking directly to the students and understanding at the beginning, on their first day, when we ask them, why did you come to Ireland? Why did you come on a language program? The majority of the students will say on the first day, because my mother told me I had to, or because my friend was going, but it's never very, elaborate. But then you get to see those students and it might only be a very short 2-week program. But by the end of the 2 weeks, you'll see the same students on departure day, and they will be bawling, crying, devastated to be leaving, having made friends to last a lifetime. We at Apollo, we always say the sign of a really good junior program is that everybody is crying hysterically on the last day. And that does happen. And not to be too dramatic about it, like studying abroad, even for a short time, it does change students' lives. So you as agents, us as educators, it might only be in a little way, but we are making an impact on those young people's lives. I love hearing stories about adults who studied in Ireland when they were teenagers, who maybe came for 2 weeks in the summer and then ended up living here later on in their lives. So it does have a lasting impact. And I think that we shouldn't underestimate that in what we do, and it should make us enjoy what we do and really stop for a moment in the busy summers and look around and see the enjoyment that students are having. So that was very short, but we'll have time for questions at the end. And I'm happy to pass over to Evan now, who's going to talk about mini stays.
Hi, everyone. If you can move to the next slide, please. I think just to echo what Aoife is saying, I think the experience of coming abroad is it's very hard to calculate. I've sent my own kids abroad. I've seen the benefits it's had, even for a week up to kind of 3 weeks, depending on the type of program. And mini stays as well, I think it's one of those programs that is very underestimated, the actual impact it can have on basically kids and students coming over. It's much more than a language program. Like we kind of joke, it's a program teaching kids nearly how to tie their shoelaces. They're living with people that they may have not lived before, experiencing a culture of different families, learning a language, learning new vocabulary, experiencing, I suppose, different bus systems, excursion activities. So it's a really, really, I think, vital program. And I think we've seen a huge increase in Ireland, a little bit down to the quality, I think, that the Irish schools provide, but also due to Brexit as well. So I think it's something that we've seen in Ireland. Huge growth, and certainly PACE is seeing next year as well. There's even more growth from the last couple of years. One of the things that is interesting, the nationality mix is quite similar to the junior programs. It would be great to see, I suppose, growth from countries outside of Europe as well. I think there's huge benefits, and hopefully with new international flights, this can be possible. But just looking at customized programs, like, I think one of the biggest things we've seen, especially from Italian students coming over, is the, PCTO. It's brilliant. It's a great program devised basically within Italy, and actually we use it a lot for other groups coming as well. So there's a lot of learning. Tailor syllabus. We run Cambridge programs, believe it or not, even for a week, and we've had students actually, and I know schools do it as well, take Cambridge exams while they're here. But also been a tailored program. You can actually work to everybody's budget, which I think is really important. I think that's kind of one of the key things. Budget came up quite a lot when Lorcan was doing his poll, and I think we all realized that everybody's a little bit cost conscious at the moment. Activities, again, as Aoife's touched on, you can actually explore Ireland really easily. We have groups going up to the Cliffs of Moher. We've got them going to the Giant's Causeway. We've got them going to Kilkenny Castle, Wexford Heritage Centres. There's so much to see and pack in into a week, but also there's lots of activities which are right on the school's doorsteps as well, which are quite cost effective. And I think that's really important. And one thing I'd always urge all of the agents out there is talk to the school, get them to recommend the activities. We know what works, and we know what works for certain age groups, and it's really, really important. It sounds simple, but it can make a big difference to the program going forward. Like all the schools, we work closely with them before they arrive, testing students if it's required before they come, so they can be placed in the classes. But also just obviously working to make sure that any dietary requests or allergies or anything like that is met as well. So if you can move to the next slide, please. So one of the interesting things here, actually, it says September to June, but actually one thing we've seen, actually, we have students arriving in January and leaving as late as December now. So that kind of traditional time of coming seems to have kind of altered a little bit, and that may be down to flight availability or actually just down to actually costs, that people are seeing that they can get better value or better availability outside the key periods. So I think that's something really important to look at, is trying to convince and educate your customers and your clients, the teachers and group leaders, that you don't all have to come in March or April. There are other months to come. I think that's really important. I think the age is fairly similar. It's 12 to 18. I think both schools would cater for those age groups. Predominantly it's host families. I know a lot of schools offer residential accommodation for the week too, which is also a great experience. And then really it's about building kind of custom activities. I think that's really important. We still get a lot of requests for some different types of teaching, and I can do it basically to do it now. The environment or social media, having classes developed, even if it is a short period, a lot of the schools have the resources and the experience to develop small but quite robust curriculum that can be actually delivered over a couple of days. So move to the next slide, please. I think this is a sample program I haven't seen for a while. Actually, it's from PACE, but it's kind of just to give you a standard type of program, what happens during the morning in the classes, depending on the number of lessons you're having. So a lot of schools, depending on the age of the students, could work with projects as well. I think that's a really important part of a program when they're coming on mini stays. You only have a short period of time, so you can only do so much. But if you get the students working together, and then at the end of it, they can do a little presentation to the teachers or the staff, I think that's a really nice use of their time as well. It gets people using their English. One of the interesting things, I think, and again, this is just a sample activity program, this is actually quite a cost-effective program. So like a lot of these activities, I think 3 or 4 of the activities is little or no cost to them. It's actually just an organization of going around either just your local area, depending if it's Donegal, Dublin, Bray, Ennis, wherever it is, Cork. A lot of activities can actually be done within the actual location of the school for quite a low cost as well. So I think that's quite important. Next slide, please. And then really just to kind of, I suppose, emphasize everything, it goes back to the whole thing within 5 days, 6 days, 7 days, whatever the duration of the mini stay is, everybody all the schools get feedback, and that's the most important thing, about the progress. And, we really see it with the students in the couple of days that they're here learning. They feel they've made a difference, from living with their family or talking with their teachers or, going to the activities. They feel that their English level has improved, but also they feel little bit more confident maybe about themselves as well. And I think that's a really important part of this program, is giving the students the opportunity to, I suppose, problem solve by themselves and experience new things. So thank you, and hope we'll be talking to a few of you later, and we'll move to the next presenter.
Thanks, Evan. So the next speaker is Sarah McGovern from ISI, talking about high schools.
Hi again, everyone. Lorcan, you can move on to the next slide, please. So high school programs in Ireland are obviously in difference to mini stays, summer camps, they're a lot longer. So the minimum term that a student would come for a high school program would be for term 1. That would be the end of August until Christmas. So it's a longer, more kind of immersive stay. Students get set up in their local schools with their school uniforms and really attend school as if they were an Irish student. Most students come for the full academic year, so that would be the end of August until the end of May, beginning of June. But we offer 3 terms. So term 1, that would bring students up until Christmas. Term 1 plus 2, which would bring students up until Easter, and then term 3, which is the final 5 or 6 week term at the end of the program. Much like what Aoife and Evan have mentioned already, the nationalities, we've noticed quite a difference in the bracket of nationalities that we've welcomed over the past few years. In past years, we might have seen a large amount of German students, Italian students, Spanish students, but in the last couple of years, more specifically, we've noticed Slovakian students joining our program and more nationalities, which we are really embracing, and we're hoping that that will continue. Currently on our program in ISI, we have a really, really diverse range of nationalities, which is really fantastic for us and for the students alike. So as you see, the people involved obviously are students. The students that come in high school programs are aged generally between 12 and 18. To be perfectly honest, the majority of students that would attend a high school program tend to be around the 14, 15, 16 year bracket. Students are able to join the junior cycle of the secondary school system. That's first, second, and third year, culminating in an exam in third year. Not very many students would actually enroll in third year for that very reason. The senior cycle then would be fourth year, fifth year, and sixth year, which is, we would find most students aged 15 and 16 would be coming to fourth year or fifth year. Sixth year would again be a state examination year, so not very many students would enroll in sixth year without having completed a fifth year program. Transition year, just to kind of single that out, transition year is fourth year. It's an optional year for students in Ireland, so Irish students have the option to go straight from third year to fifth year if they wish, or they can choose to kind of take a year out, do transition year, which is a really fantastic year, and it's kind of unique to Ireland. Most schools will offer a large array of subjects for students to test out and try during their time in TY. So as opposed to maybe studying a total of 6 subjects in fifth year and really being academically focused, students would have the option to study maybe 12 or 15 subjects throughout the year. They might learn driving skills, work experience, a much less academic year, but it's quite popular amongst our international students because of how different it is and how unique it is to Ireland. The schools, a lot of schools are based in Dublin, County Dublin, so North County Dublin, South County Dublin, and the suburbs. So they would be generally accessible to Dublin City. Some students we find don't necessarily want to be close to a city, so there are options for students to attend a high school maybe in the Midlands or down the south of the country. and have a totally different experience. So perhaps the student is coming from a large city in Italy, and they want a totally different experience. So they might go to a school in County Cavan, in a really, really small village, so have a totally different experience. The schools are two different options. Well, I guess in terms of sex, there are single-sex schools on offer and co-ed schools on offer. Again, both are equally great. Some students might have preferences with regards to what type of school they would like to go. Some would really prefer a mixed school, and some would like to try a single-sex school, depending on what they're coming from at home. We have close relationships with you, our overseas partners. It's a mutual kind of support throughout the time that the student is here. And we would rely on our partner to relay everything back to natural parents. So we don't necessarily have direct communication with the parents, and that we work really, really closely with our partner with regards to how their child is doing and what kind of support is needed. As well as the different types of schools, we've obviously different types of accommodation with high school. So host family accommodation will be quite popular. I suppose, speaking from my perspective in ISI, the vast majority of students are attending state schools, and they're living with host families. Although, of course, there is an option of boarding schools where students do either 7-day boarding at school, or possibly a 5-day boarding and weekends with their host family. So they would maybe, for example, in Dundalk in County Louth, the student might attend boarding school from Sunday night until Friday, and then they would stay with the host family Friday evening until Sunday evening. We have a team of student advisors in ISI, and much like all other MEI schools. The ratio, I guess, of student advisor to students will be 30, maximum 30 students per advisor or coordinator. So that coordinator or advisor is the student's go-to person during their time in Ireland. So that would be to assist with the good and bad. So if a student is interested in maybe joining a basketball club in their local area, or maybe they're homesick, they're suffering with a bit of homesickness, their go-to person is their student advisor. So they're in constant contact with the student over text message, phone calls, and monthly meetings. So they would be having monthly meetings at least once a month. And the student advisor is always in very close contact with the overseas partner with any updates or any progression with regards to the student. Lorcan, you can go to the next slide, please. So 2 different types of schools I kind of touched on already. Boarding schools would be, I suppose there are quite a number of boarding schools in Dublin, but also throughout the country. So we've had students placed in County Limerick, County Louth, County Tipperary, and of course Dublin. So placements are usually for the full academic year only. So as I already mentioned, the terms that are available for high school program, some students will just decide to stay for term 1, and that would bring them up until Christmas. That is generally not possible for boarding schools. So boarding schools maintain their boarding placements, keep their boarding placements for full year applicants only. Accommodation is generally on campus. And as I kind of mentioned, it depends on the school. Some schools will have border weekends, so the student will stay in the boarding house 7 days a week, but maybe every 3 weeks they will have a boarding weekend where they stay with a host family for a weekend and have a break from the boarding house and experience stay with a host family. Other schools are just 7 days boarding, and then others like what I mentioned with Dundalk Grammar School, they would be 5-day boarding and every single weekend with a host family. So it's kind of nice for students to have the opportunity, if they really want boarding only, or if they want to have the experience of both, that is always on offer as well. Host family accommodation during school holidays. So during the midterm break, so we have a midterm break actually next week. So at the end of October, the middle of February, and then the Easter break is a 2-week break. So boarding schools would normally close during these school holidays, and the students would be placed in a temporary host family. So depending on where that student is attending school, that could be in Dublin, they will be placed in a host family in Dublin. If they're down the country, maybe in Cork or in Limerick, they would be placed in a family in Limerick, or they might want to join one of our social programs during that midterm break. And of course, they would be generally held from Dublin. So they would come and stay in Dublin for the week. So again, it depends. We cater to what the student prefers and what where their priorities lie. Public and private day schools. So of course, public schools, most public schools will accept students from for all terms. So as I said, up until Christmas, or just for the final term, term 3, which is Easter, until the end of May. Private day schools will generally accept only for the full academic year, much like boarding schools. But in some cases, they will accept for a half a year. Accommodation is with a host family in public schools, and EU students, of course, can attend both public and private schools. Non-EU students can't attend public schools in Ireland. Okay, Lorcan, you can pop over to the next slide, please. So attending a high school in Ireland, we rely on our partnerships with you, the agents. We have long-standing partners for many years. ISI, for example, has been running a high school programme since 2001. We have many partners that we've worked very closely with, but we're always establishing new contact with agents, and we're always welcoming that, especially with regards to nationalities. We're always happy to form new partnerships. The students that come on our program, they're generally really eager to learn, and I know Aoife and Evan have mentioned already, the students might be sent here maybe by their parents. They might have been given no choice in the matter. So the beginning of their stay might be a little bit difficult, especially considering they may be arriving at the end of August and staying for a full academic year, which seems like a very, very long time. But I have to say, it's such a fantastic transition for the students. We're at the end of October now already, and I've seen such a massive change in students who have just arrived within the last 6 or 7 weeks, and how they have come out of their shell, and how they have improved their English in such a short amount of time. So it's always great to see that in students, and how they really want to get involved in everything. Another thing to mention would be our host families. So again, we have a lot of long-standing host families that we work with, and that all MEI schools would work with families who host on a yearly basis. The families are Garda vetted, so they're police. They go through full police checks to make sure they're fit to host a junior, and they just really want to show a high school student how good their program can be, and show them a family life here in Ireland. Communication is another thing to touch on. I mentioned already our student advisors, who are in constant contact with our partners, with our students, providing support. schools will also have access to a 24/7 emergency phone. So while office hours would be generally 8 to 5, students can contact anyone if they need to. There is always an option to contact a member of staff in the evening time outside of office hours and at weekends, in case of an emergency or in case of something happening and support being needed on this end. Our staff are all, again, Garda vetted, so they fully police checked. They go through trainings and are really eager and enthusiastic about making sure that the students fulfill their programme while in Ireland. So if anyone has any questions at the end of the webinar, then I'll be happy to answer. Thank you.
That's great. Thank you so much, Sarah. And our last speaker will be Gina to talk to us about the English Plus and how I suppose that differs from the English multi-activity programme.
You can go to the next slide, please, Lorcan. So, hi everyone. I'm delighted to be able to present on the English and Plus programs. It's some our most popular programs and something that we've been running for over 34 years. The thing with the English Plus programs is that they provide a unique experience to the students. They typically run in the summer and the specific with a specific focus on one activity. They're generally delivered by professional expert instructors to make a bespoke and unique program. They run from June until August. I saw in the chat there somebody was saying about, in June. I know for ourselves, for example, we run from the 9th of June, but again, it varies from school to school. And I think because the demand is out there that schools are starting to open earlier and earlier because there is such high demand. And the schools typically offer homestay and residential campus. You can go to the next slide, please, Lark. So what we put together is just the more popular programs, which shows what a good array of programs are on offer in the English Plus domain. So everything from English and golf, horse riding, rugby, football, surf and STEAM, which is science, technology, engineering, the arts and mathematics, music, dance and digital technology. So it shows that there really is a wide array of programs on offer to suit all tastes and needs of the students. The one thing with the English Plus program is, you were saying there, if at the beginning the students say, oh, my parent chose it. The thing about the English Plus is typically it's actually the kid that's choosing it because, they might be surfing at home or they do a bit of rugby or they love a bit of golf. So you'll find that the decision maker isn't just the parent, it's actually the child and the parent, which is great because from the moment they come, they want to be here. They mightn't want to learn English as much, but once you get them into the class and you have that fun, dynamic approach, they're more than happy to be there. You can move to the next slide, please, Lorcan. Now, this is just a typical program, just to show you that with the English Plus, they're action-packed. So they typically include 15 hours of English. They typically include 5 sessions of whatever activity they've chosen. If they're in residential, it's typically 5 evening activities. Homestays is typically 2. There's always a full day excursion, and that excursion is to somewhere of cultural or adventure interest, along with some shopping, which the students love. And then the Sunday is generally that relaxed day or go out with your leader day, or depends if you're an individual or a group. And I suppose the big thing about the English Plus programs is, what do the students get out of it? They make connection with that activity, connection with new friends that they make. They get to practice English in a more real life setting because there's great nationality mix in the English Plus programs. And they get that first flavour and taste of independence, being away from their family, and having a bit of space, but also in a very safe and secure environment. You can go to the next slide, Lorcan. So professionalism and high standard are of utmost importance to MEI schools. And with that in mind, MEI schools partner with well-recognised and established organisations or bodies. And these are just a sample of some of the bodies that they partner with to ensure that high standard. So you've got everybody from Trinity, some of the most prestigious universities in Ireland, along with like the rugby union, the surfing union, the riding union. And this ensures that everything is delivered to a high standard, that there's quality, that there's safety, and that the kids have a really good time. So next slide, Lorcan. So just with that in mind, short and sweet, but I think it's something that you discuss, and that we're more than happy to answer any questions that you have. And just thanks very much for listening to us today. And we're just delighted to speak to you all. Thank you.
That's great. Thanks so much, Gina. So I'm going to stop share now, and we'll start a panel discussion maybe for about 20 minutes or so. There's a number of different themes that have come up in the conversation. We've received a few questions before the webinar through the registration link. And obviously, if people have any questions that they want to throw into the chat box, please do so. To accompany this webinar, we've also produced a short booklet kind of giving a profile of the MEI schools in terms of the different junior programs that they deliver, because I know my colleagues on the call today are trying to, as best as they can, reflect the whole country in terms of junior programs, but we will have that specific booklet going out alongside the recording of this webinar, so you'll be able to, I suppose, look a little bit more in detail about what's on offer on the individual school basis. So I think we'll kick off, as I said, a couple of themes that came up, particularly in the poll earlier on today. And one of the questions that's arising is around accommodation. So I might invite Evan to give us a little bit of an insight into, I suppose, what it's like to stay with a host family in Ireland, and maybe to discuss a little bit about how the dynamics have changed over the last few years. Obviously, there were certain capacity constraints coming out of the pandemic, but I suppose if you could give us an insight of how things have improved in 2023 and what you think things will be like in 2024.
Yeah, thanks, Logan. I think everybody will be delighted to hear that the capacity is coming back. I think every year it's getting stronger and stronger. It's coming back for various different reasons. But I think the overall experience of living with a family it's key to the overall program, be it a summer program, high school, or a mini stay program. It just gives, I suppose, the kids an opportunity to see what living with a different culture is, to kind of have that experience. It's also quite a secure environment as well, because listen, I think as agents, you've all heard stories of students been stranded and reaching out for help and finding out it's actually the host family that popped into the car and drove down and collected the student and brought them back. So it's a great and secure way for the families. Also, the families have great local knowledge of the areas they're living in. They help the students from the very minute they walk through the door to how to get to school, which are the best buses, if they've got even long-term students, if they're in high school program, if they've any problems and issues. I'm sure loads of families love doing a little bit of a homework with the students as well on the high school program. Thankfully, they don't have to do that on a mini stay or junior or summer program. But I think still, I know a lot of schools offer residential for the week as well, which I think is a great alternative. It may suit older students or very young students, but I still think predominantly host families still seem to be the biggest choice going forward.
That's great, Evan. And I suppose maybe somebody else could come in and talk a little bit about residential accommodation as a sort of separate option. I mean, our member schools often in the summer will take over large university campuses where they have access to the university accommodation, but also some of our members will have their own residential all year round accommodation as well. So I don't know, maybe Gina, if you want to come in on that.
Yeah, so we have year-round residential accommodation. I suppose post-COVID, we always had residential accommodation, but we saw the demand post-COVID, so we actually have acquired a building about 2 years ago, and and to be honest, we have now a lot of mini stays coming and staying on a weekly basis in our residential campus, and it is very popular. I think it just depends on the location in the school, but for us, the residential accommodation is actually more popular than the homestay. And the great thing, I suppose, about residential accommodation, it just depends on the groups and the demands and what they're looking for, but it gives them the option. There's definite benefits to residential as opposed to host family, and keeping the group together. And, from an activity point of view, you can deliver more activities when they're in residential accommodation.
Great, thanks, Gina. And I don't know, Aoife or Sarah, if you want to add anything further on accommodation before we move on.
Yeah, I was just going to say, because we're mainly in the summer for juniors, and just to mirror what Gina said, we have 3 residential centres in university residences and 1 host family centre. So I definitely personally feel a lot of demand is moving towards residential programmes as well.
Perfect. Okay. Something that came up in the poll earlier was around safety, and maybe this is somewhat tied in, I suppose, in the dynamics of accommodation and traveling to accommodation and who's looking after the children. So maybe, Sarah, if you'd like to talk to us a little bit about, I suppose, the policies that MEI schools will put in place around safeguarding, the different training that you have to provide your staff, and other, I suppose, safety nets for students traveling to Ireland.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, dealing with junior students, it's massively important that everyone involved goes through some sort of training. So, for example, our staff would be going through regular child protection training. We obviously have a child protection policy in place, but our staff, everyone who's dealing with minors, go through regular child protection training, children first training. We also would have at least 2 members of staff on site at any given time who have gone through designated liaison person training. So they would be our go-to person or people when it comes to anything that is of concern or anything that has happened. We always have someone on site to deal with the issue at hand. Host families and staff alike are fully Garda vetted. So I kind of mentioned that as well in while talking about high school programs. So all staff who are dealing with minors, and actually all staff in our buildings at the moment, whether or not they're dealing with minors, are fully Garda vetted. So they go through thorough police checks. Host families go through the same, so Garda vetting, which is updated every 3 years. Host families are also visited regularly by our staff, by our accommodation teams, so that, again, to kind of keep up with the 3-yearly Garda vetting process in place, the families would be visited, so their homes inspected, and basically deemed fit to host a minor. And basically it's just so important for anyone, any of us schools who are dealing with minors, to be fully committed in providing a safe environment for our students. That is first and foremost the most important thing for us, to make sure students are fully supported and taken care of by staff, host families and schools, who are all fully equipped to do so.
That's great, Sarah. Thank you. If any of the other panelists want to come in on that. All good. I suppose the other thing, just to say, I mean, broadly, Ireland is a very safe country, and our students, I mean, if they're staying in residence, obviously there is kind of oversight there, but typically the students are staying in communities that are very safe. The families know each other. The communities are very integrated, and I suppose most importantly as well, the schools know the families and they know the communities, and there's a close connection there going back over many years, particularly with maybe some of our more rural schools. So there's a few questions coming in around, I suppose, flexibility in terms of programs to a certain extent, and maybe this kind of ties in with the cost concerns. And one of the questions was about program start dates, and then another one was about where was it? Oh yeah, there was another question here about individuals. Can they go on mini stay groups, or is mini stays only for groups? And what are the most popular programs for individuals? So I suppose there's a few different kind of questions there about the flexibility. So I don't know if anybody wants to come in on that.
I'll jump in on the dates part. So for mini stay groups, most of the MEI schools, I can't speak for everyone, but most of us will have flexibility in terms of the arrival day. So it doesn't have to be Saturday to Saturday or Sunday to Sunday. We know the issue with flights, so it could be Monday to Monday, or if it's 6 nights, Tuesday arrival, Monday departure, that kind of thing. For us personally, for the summer programs for the juniors, because we work with a lot of individuals as well as groups, we're quite fixed with our weekend arrivals and departures. In Limerick, we changed it to a Monday to Monday arrival and departure, with a view to kind of seeing if that's a better option to having a weekday arrival, because obviously flights at the weekend are quite expensive. So for the future years, we may change our arrival and departure days. But just to answer in general, mini stay schools are generally quite flexible. Other schools maybe are flexible, but for the way our program works, we're quite fixed at the moment with the weekends.
That's great, Aoife. This was the question about, yes, programs more popular for individuals. I mean, so typically individuals are going to be coming in the summer on those summer programs. I suppose maybe there's people on the call that accept individuals at other parts of the year.
We accept individuals from around June 9th, but not at any other time of the year. It's groups after that.
Yeah, and I certainly see, I suppose, talking to schools, they're sort of stretching out the period as much as possible to try and make it easier on individuals traveling, that they're not having to come in July where flights and there's other cost factors. So certainly a lot of our members are trying to accommodate maybe the early summer or even the later into sort of August period, August, September if possible, to be able to offer maybe more flexibility in terms of flight arrangements. There's a question here about mini stays, which maybe Evan might be able to take on. Just asking about mini stays staying with host families, and if that's an option to have, I suppose, an integration with, I suppose, an Irish integration as it's described here.
Yeah, it's quite a common request that we get. Unfortunately, it's a request that has to be dealt on a case-by-case basis, because it depends on the time of the year. On the age of the students. Unfortunately, with exam cycles and everything, certain schools are not open to students coming in, and really just it's also to do with the size of the group. I think often mini stays can be anything up to 60 students, and that's obviously can be sometimes a little problematic for Irish schools to cater for. So what I would just urge is that contact the schools directly with the request. And basically explain what you're looking for. We've certainly done it in the past. It is certainly workable, but there's a little bit of planning that needs to be done. So short answer, yes, it could be done. Long answer is there is a lot of work though in getting it done.
Yeah, well, we do have a handful of members who do specialise in Irish integration, and those details will be shared with you in the booklet following the webinar today. Another thing that came up on the poll, and it was described as, there's a few mentions of excursions and activities, and in particular, well-organised, I suppose, activity schedule. So I might bring Aoife on that.
Yeah, so I mentioned earlier about how a big selling point for sending junior students to Ireland is that we're such a small country that everywhere is a couple of hours drive. Gina in Donegal, I can reach her in if I put the boot down, 2 hours maybe, but from Dublin to Cork is about 3 hours. From Dublin to Limerick is about 2.5 hours. So if I take a kind of typical 2-week program, and I'll pick Limerick because it's very well located. Students on a typical 2-week program will have 5 full-day excursions. So from Limerick, we can very easily go to Galway, we can go to Dublin, we can go to Cork, and then there's many things around the Limerick region. Schools in, and also the Cliffs of Moher are very close to there. So schools in Cork, again, can do day trips to Dublin, to Galway, maybe just a little bit far, but to Kerry. Then schools in Dublin, we go all over the place. So we will be going to Kilkenny, we will be going to Causey Farm in County Meath, we will be going to Glendalough and Powerscourt, which a lot of schools will offer, and also to Belfast, which is a very popular destination. I personally get this question all the time: do students need a passport or a travel ID to go to Belfast? I'll take this opportunity to tell everybody now that it's no, they don't. And yeah, so definitely there's such a wide variety of excursions and trips in Ireland, not just for juniors, for everyone, but a lot of them are tailored specifically to the age group that we welcome students to. So we, every year, we're looking for new things and better things, and talking to the students and seeing, we might think that they want to go to Glendalough, but maybe they have a different idea. So it's finding the balance between a nice cultural excursion that the parents would like them to do and fun that the kids themselves want to do. So I personally think that Ireland has, it's one of the biggest selling points for all of the schools when we're selling Ireland, as we're all competing with other countries. So Ireland has a lot to offer.
That's great. Thanks, Aoife. And if anybody else wants to come in on that, just talking about activities or excursions or anything unique that you have in your school.
Well, I'll just mention about the high school program. Obviously, students are in school throughout the whole year, but just during the midterm breaks and the Easter break, students have the opportunity to return home if they want to. But if they decide to stay in Ireland, we run midterm social programs. So kind of like Aoife mentioned, we bring students to the Cliffs of Moher for a full day trip, or maybe to the Giant's Causeway up in the north. So it's a really great opportunity for students who are maybe based in Dublin to see the opposite side of the country in a day and be back in Dublin by the evening. So it's, yeah, great opportunity for students to see the country, see the island.
Yeah, Lorcan, if I could just jump in, I think it's really important to emphasise for schools outside of Dublin as well, that there's a lot of local places to do it, a lot of cost-effective activities that can be arranged, from treasure hunts to table quizzes, that don't really cost a lot, especially for those budget kind of more groups. So looking outside of your kind of, I suppose, your traditional city centres, there's a lot that can be organised locally by the school, different activities which are very cost effective. So I think when, you know, schools are putting a schedule together, or agents are looking for programs, you know, I think there are a lot of opportunities just to kind of see, you know, from a budget perspective, what can be done. So.
That's great. Thanks so much, Evan. Just 2 questions from the chat. One was about are there programs that include activities like visiting a couple of companies? Yeah, I'm from my experience, there are a few programs available across the country that are more, I suppose, career focused or job focused. Some that are like English plus internships. So if any of the panelists want to come in on that.
Yeah, we have a program, an English plus apprenticeship program. So it depends on the age range, but if it's 16 plus, there's English and work experience. And if it's that kind of 14 to 16 age range, it's an English apprenticeship. And it's kind of a Dragon's Den style scenario that they put into in the English class. And then they actually have to research a local company. They go out and meet that company. And then they have to ask, there's a Q&A with the company, and the company does a presentation to them.
Yeah, I've heard feedback on those types of programs. They're very popular.
Yeah, they are. They're good
Really
programs.
good, very practical. Yeah. And And then there's a question I missed earlier on, and it was about vaccination requirements for students, I suppose, staying in residential. The short answer is no. There's no proof of vaccination requirements in Ireland in terms of travel into the country or anywhere, if anything, really, just accommodation, activity, or anything like that. There's no proof of vaccine requirements in Ireland. Oliver Wang has a question in the chat box regarding high school. Boarding school open to both EU and non-EU. Can non-EU students go to public state boarding school? Sarah might correct me on this. We don't actually have any by public state, I know in Britain, public state means actually a private school. We have slightly different terminology here, but certainly non-EU students must go to private day schools. They can't go to a free, like a state-owned day school. I think that's the question that's being asked there. So I think we're nearly about to wrap up. We've kind of answered all of the questions. But what I might do is we just might go around the four panelists. And just if you want to give maybe 1 or 2 points, I suppose, the final, unique selling points of Ireland, and particularly with a focus on junior programs. And I'm going to start with Gina.
For me, I think Ireland is a great destination because not only I think a lot of it is down to our hospitality, our friendliness, and we also have a good sense of humour, which goes a long way when you're delivering programs with juniors. And I think as well, it's down to, that warm, welcoming environment that we offer and the safety. You know, we are a safe country, and I think that's such an important thing when you're sending your children away to Ireland, is the safety is paramount.
Thanks, Gina. If anybody else wants to come in on that.
I think everyone's tired of listening to me talking about excursions and trips. But I just want to add to that, just about what the Irish schools have to offer. That we, as Gina said, we're all friendly. Irish people love to talk. Some of us talk too much, but we do like having really good relationships with our agents. So, sometimes, you'll have we're all very professional, but we get to be friends with our agents, and I think that we all love what we do, and you couldn't do this job and do junior programs if you didn't love it. So I think that kind of passes on then to the students and the experience that they have from the moment that they arrive to the MEI schools until the moment that they leave. And then we all meet the agents after the summer, and maybe there were issues, maybe there are things to discuss, but it's a really year on year, we all get better, we all improve, we all talk to the students, talk to the agents. So I think that I said it already before, but more than ever, the relationships that we have with the agents, and it works the other way too, the relationship that the agents have with us, because it is based on trust. When you're dealing with juniors, as I said, it's completely different to sending adults. We need to be here when you need us, and we are here when our agents need us. So on that note, I'll say goodbye.
Thank you so much, Aoife.
Yeah, I would just jump into quality. I think the quality in Ireland is second to none. And we see that we have so many repeat clients, I'm sure every school has, and the reason they keep coming back is purely just down the quality. And it can be do with the price. Sometimes the price, obviously everybody's looking at that, but I think once people see the quality, they come back again and again. And I think that's for our teachers. I think the organisations, how they're run. I think host families, we have a poor old accommodation officer that can't shop in Bray anymore because she's families coming up asking her, will our students like this food? And she's just nodding at them going, yeah, I presume so. I think so. So families really care. And I think that's one of the big selling points. And we hear that time and time again towards other destinations. So personally, echoing what everybody else has said, but to me, it's just the quality is just exceptional.
Thanks, Evan. And I'll leave the final word with Sarah if you want to speak about high schools or more broadly about Ireland.
Yeah, well, kind of, I'd reiterate and echo what everyone else has said. Like we really are it's a fantastic place to come. But just to kind of put it into perspective with regards to high school placements, the students are here for a 9-month period, so it's a massive, fully immersive program where they really get into the feel of being an Irish student at school and get into the what being an Irish student is like, and come home with Irish accents. So it's really nice to see, and it's a really amazing experience for the students. They all, I think one of the panel members have already mentioned earlier on, by the time they're leaving at the end of May, there's usually a lot of tears.
That's great. Thank you so much, Sarah.
Just one thing, Norton, I feel that with the 69 member schools of MEI, there's an awful lot of well-established schools within there. They're very person-centred. Support and quality is paramount to all the schools. That's why we're members of MEI, and I think that's just something that needs to be echoed. Is just the quality, the support, and the person-centred approach that we all strive to do to the best of our abilities.
That's great. Thank you so much, Gina. Yeah. I suppose just to wrap up and to Gina's point, I mean, we have 4 speakers here representing their schools, but also very much representing the sector. And we've been very sort of collaborative and strong as a network in terms of working together to promote Ireland, to promote the quality, and to hopefully attract more junior students to Ireland. So we hope this webinar was informative. We'll certainly share the slides afterwards. We'll also, this is being recorded, so we'll share the recording. So if you want to share that with any of your counsellors or colleagues, and as I said, we also will have a small kind of brochure going out as well with a bit more detail on the individual school offerings. So thank you so much for being with us today. Thank you for all of your engagement. It's really helped us in terms of figuring out the information that's important to you, and we hope to catch up with you again soon. Thank you.